So here's a question nobody thought we'd be asking in March 2026. Is Canada about to send troops to Iran? Because based on the last 48 hours of statements from Ottawa, your guess is honestly as good as mine. Welcome to another episode of What's Canada's Position Today, where the answer changes faster than your weather app updates. Let's rewind to where this all started. Prime Minister Mark Carney initially expressed strong support for U.S. airstrikes on Iran last weekend. Full backing, no hesitation. Then, plot twist, he later said he made that statement with regret, because the bombing campaign appears inconsistent with international law. That's quite the turnaround, like ordering extra spicy and then immediately asking for milk. Now the Conservatives are stepping up and saying, hold on, we need some clarity here. Defense critic James Bezan told reporters Thursday that if there's any talk of deploying Canadian troops into this situation, Parliament needs to vote on it first. His argument? This conversation needs to happen publicly, with full transparency, in the House of Commons where Canadians can actually see what's being decided. Not exactly a wild request when we're talking about potentially sending military personnel into an active conflict zone. Bezan also pointed out what a lot of people are thinking. The shifting positions don't add up. Ottawa went from supporting the airstrikes to expressing regret about them to now insisting on a diplomatic solution to end military action they just endorsed. It's like watching someone argue both sides of a debate with themselves. The Conservative position is straightforward. If we're considering any military involvement, let Parliament decide through a proper vote, not backroom discussions. Here's where it gets interesting. Carney has stated that Canada has no plans to join the military campaign launched by Washington and Israel. Sounds pretty clear, right? Except when he was asked about it Wednesday, he wouldn't completely rule out a military deployment if allies requested help. So we've gone from no plans to, well, we can't say never. That's the kind of answer that makes everyone nervous because it's technically not a yes, but it's definitely not a no either. Meanwhile, the MP overseeing defense procurement, Stephen Four, said he hasn't been part of any discussions about potential military involvement in Iran. His take? The region's unstable, there's conflict happening, and Canada will make decisions about what involvement looks like when the time comes. Not exactly the reassuring clarity people were hoping for. Let's talk numbers, because this matters. Lieutenant General Steve Boivin revealed Thursday that there are about 200 Canadian Armed Forces members currently deployed to the Middle East across 6 operations. Some have been relocated to other countries in the region, and some have returned to Canada since the conflict intensified. Boivin's command would be responsible for any evacuation or assisted departure of Canadian citizens if things escalate further. Right now, Global Affairs hasn't requested military help, but they're conducting contingency planning because that's always a standing task. The international dimension adds another layer of complexity. Turkey reported Thursday that a NATO defense system intercepted an incoming ballistic missile, though Iran denied launching it. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte downplayed the possibility of an alliance-wide response, noting nobody's discussing that option. Defense experts point out that Spain has expressed opposition to the military action, and Greece would likely not support invoking NATO's collective defense clause to defend Turkey, which means NATO involvement remains unlikely but internal divisions are a real concern. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand confirmed she'd spoken with Rutte recently, presumably coordinating Canada's position with alliance discussions. It's the kind of diplomatic chess game where every statement gets analyzed for hidden meanings and future implications. Adding to the confusion, a video emerged from at least a week before the American strikes showing Parliamentary Secretary Rob Oliphant telling constituents that Canada doesn't support military action without UN authorization. He specifically said Canada doesn't support an American strike and doesn't believe in non-UN sanctioned military action. When asked about this Wednesday, Anand said she wasn't aware of Oliphant's comments. So now we've got different government officials apparently expressing different positions, which doesn't exactly project unity or clarity. Advocacy groups like Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East are calling on Carney to definitively rule out participation, arguing the conflict isn't popular with Canadians and the Prime Minister himself has suggested it might violate international law. Their point is valid. If you think something breaks international law, why leave the door open to participating in it? So where does this leave us? Canada's got troops in the region, no immediate plans for involvement but no categorical ruling out of future deployment, shifting government messaging, conservative demands for parliamentary oversight, and international allies pulling in different directions. What's your take? Should Parliament vote before any military deployment happens, or should the government maintain flexibility to respond to ally requests? Drop your thoughts below because this situation's evolving fast. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated with Canadian Breakdown as we track every development in this story. We're posting throughout the day to keep you informed. Thanks for watching.